Legacy Space, the story, has always been and always will be very close to my heart. The main character is loosely based off of a lot of like movies that I've liked, but is also a kind of tribute to my grandfather. With his name and stuff like that, and the stuff that he went through. Um, the I'll try to keep this under a half an hour, but Legacy Space in itself is scoped so so wide and so far. You can't imagine how big it is, but I've rewrote it and redone it I don't know how many times, but we'll just get right to it. Um, the story of Legacy Space is people are in a pocket of a dimension that is basically hell. They live their lives like they would any other time, but they're, unbeknownst to them, is they're constantly locked into what is called the legacy. And the legacy is basically just an endless loop of time of people living and dying and then going back to the beginning again, living and dying and looping back forth over and over again with little things changing. Just like Drool, this was in the middle of the 1990s, okay? Parallels to this and The Matrix have been made about my story. Once again, The Matrix was before, or The Matrix, I'm sorry, was after I made Legacy Space. So I was not at all inspired by The Matrix. This is more or less inspired by three things. One, Star Wars. Two, the Ten Commandments, because I really like the Cecil B. DeMille Ten Commandments. And three, the David Lynch's Dune. More like the David Lynch's Dune than anything. The story starts with blackness, nothing there, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's a spaceship that appears. None of these characters have any idea where they're at. They just know where they were from and that they were escaping from where they were from. You find out that there's a leader, Sullivan Simon, who has basically brought them out, handpicked them for their strengths and their ideas of science and technology and stuff like that, because he knew these people were desperate to get out of their situation, and they had the resource, they had the talent to be able to, wherever they go, be able to live, to be able to find a way to live. They find a planet, can't see it, but they recognize that there's a mass in front of them. So they begin to land, and the planet is, in all intents and purposes, a planet of volcanic ash. There is lava beds and stuff like that. And there is some life, because life does grow in volcanic areas. So it's just enough to synthesize food. The air is, as they know, is unbreathable. Sullivan Simon takes a risk and breathes in the air, only to find out it changes them ever so slightly. Eye color, the parallels to Dune. It's more or less just to symbolize, more like Star Wars, the Sith and their eyes changing color. Then you could say, Star Wars ripped off Dune. The eye changing color was just something to kind of symbolize more of a emotional state. Because at the time when I was younger, I couldn't quite draw people in emotional, so I registered it with their eyes, because the eyes are always like windows into the soul. So when you change somebody's eye color, it usually signalizes whether they're evil, whether they're good, whether they're, there's always something with the eyes. So that's the reason why I did it. Um, the it leads to hundreds of years later, when they've already established cities and towns on this rock, um, there is still an animosity between two different factions: the factions that wanted to follow Sullivan Simons, and the factions that just didn't wanted to sit there and say that this is wrong, we shouldn't be here, we should try to find a way back home. Because there's no light, there's no moon, there's no stars, there's no sun. It's just dark all the time, and it's very hard to live. Not that you couldn't live, it's just very hard to live. So in that time, a few, like 100, 200 years later, there's been wars between these two people. They've thus populated the planet, a good maybe 2,000, 3,000 people. Not fully populated like you would think, but, still populated enough. What with wars and stuff like that, and people not living as long as they used to live, that type of stuff. The groups that have formed is this city. God, I can't remember the name of it right now, but whatever. I think it's Vice. It's Vice City, and this was before Grand Theft Auto, but it was Vice. And you had the town of Moorville, which was more or less like a mining slash power energy, because they lived near the lava beds, so they could siphon energy through thermal energy and stuff like that. And you had the Four Seas, which were people that were having weird dreams, which is the reason why they got into war in the first place. Was because they were having visions that they should leave, that they're not supposed to be there. Visions of the future, visions of other people, visions of people they haven't seen, visions of people doing different things. They didn't have to necessarily be in the future. They saw people walking around inside of a room. They would see destruction all around them, and they were so real. The dreams were vivid. That they basically made a pact with the people of the city of Vice that they would no longer kind of like push their ideas anymore. So they basically hid in the mountains because of the wars. They were hiding. Now, at this time when the actual story takes place, there's a young gentleman by the name of Dom, who was basically son of the rulers of Vice. Okay, think of him as like Moses. Basically he's trying to be everything that he thinks he needs to be, which is this kind of purveyor of keeping the Four Seas and people from revolting, because there's been talk that Vice has been holding a lot of withholding a lot of information from people. So there's a lot of discontent with the city of Vice, even though it is considered the center and the most prosperous, and the people that live in Vice are like strong, they're really built. So a lot of people see him as, well, we hate him, but we gotta, if we do this and do that, we won't get in trouble, type of thing. But when there is problems, Dom is sent out in this regale and hooked up to a machine that basically has him go out and be like a peacekeeper, like a sheriff, but more or less he's given free range to do whatever he wants or whatever he's told to. And one of the things that he's told to do is to murder people if he need to be. So in that regard, Dom is some sort of Rommel from World War II. Like Moses was. Moses was Egyptian, before he found out he was Hebrew. Dom's parents are dead, He ends up finding out later that they died in the War of the Roses, which is the war that basically, split Vice and Four Seas had to hide in the mountain. Dom ends up realizing what he's doing is wrong when they tell him that he needs to murder all of these people in this building because they've been digging holes in the ground trying to find some resources, trying to find some books that they believe will help them get them out of there. It's schematics to build a spaceship is what it is. What ships they have on this planet cannot leave the atmosphere. They're not powerful enough. The power that they have is only resulted, with the dense, the dense air and everything else. They can't. But there is ships that fly around. They just have to fly at a low atmosphere. So he ends up murdering these people, and he finds out that there's this one lady with a child, and he's told to murder them all. And he just, I can't. You didn't tell me there was children here. I will not kill children. And he turns on everybody else. Well, he's tased. He's knocked out, and he's taken back. They torture him because that's the only thing he knows in life, is whenever he does something wrong, he gets tortured. And he accepts the responsibility. He knew he did wrong, but he just couldn't do it. But he tells him, it's okay, just torture me. So he basically gives in. He martyrizes himself. But in his coma / delusional state where he has been beaten and is laying there dying on the bed, he sees a vision of his mother telling him he needs to get to Moorville. And obviously, why did you leave me? Why did you abandon me? Because he doesn't know one way or another. He just knows that they abandoned him and stuff like that. Neither here nor there. He tries to leave, still thinking he's delusional. Dresses up, puts some healing salve on him so he feels a little bit better, because they really beat him. But he's strong, so he's gonna take what they, but he's still gonna hurt. He's still gonna have bruises. He's still gonna have cuts and stuff like that. He leaves, and he runs into a soldier, and the soldier doesn't see him because the soldier's preoccupied to get someplace. But he still follows him, and he goes behind a wall, and he doesn't understand. He saw him go down an alley, but the wall disappeared. The wall didn't disappear. The wall's there. But then he ends up finding out it's like a secret door. Goes down into a cave. In there, he finds the ruler of Vice and the lady, and the child's not there, but the lady that was holding the child, the one that he didn't kill, the lady he didn't kill holding the child, is there. And he flat out tells her, you will tell me what you found, otherwise you are no use to me. And she just kept silent, and so he just grabs her and he breaks her neck, throws her to the ground. Now Dom sees all this behind a pillar, and he's like, I gotta leave. I may be delusional about my mother and stuff, but I can't stay here. After this happened and stuff like that, I know I killed people, but I killed people because they were doing something wrong. She didn't do anything wrong. All she was doing was just keeping her silence and saving her baby. So he ends up trying to, he makes it a note to try to board a spaceship and try to get to Moorville. Okay? Keep in mind, this is chapter, I think 3. There is probably about 14 chapters in the first book. Okay, it is in intensive purposes. I know I'm rambling because I'm trying to give you bit by bit details, but from here on in, I'm just going to go ahead and just give you brief synopsis, because I could go into details about everything, every little thing that happens, and it's really cool. Don't get me wrong. Like some of the dreams that they have and stuff like that, and then the actual, because what happens between Sullivan Simon in the 200 years that have passed, before I talk about Dom, I actually talk about a young woman named Sindel, and she has dreams, and she tries to talk to another gentleman who basically tells her, everything's going to be okay. Your dreams are your visions. I can't give you answers and da 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 da. But neither here nor there. Dom gets to Morville. Dom meets two people that he believes that are going to end his life. He believe that they're spies sent by the ruler to try to kill him because he left, because he feels like he was being followed. He ends up befriending him. He shows him what he's worth, and he's about ready to kill one of them. He says, "I just can't kill anymore. I can't kill." So basically, he drops him. And he says, "Just end my life. I don't care. I just want to die. I don't want to have anything to do with this." And even though they're from Morville, there's certain people how they look. They're from a certain type of. It's like people from Vice. They generally have. A look of they're built, they're strong, they have dark hair. People that are Morville are generally, they have no hair because they're by radioactive material and the heat and stuff like that. They can't grow any hair. The people from Four Seas are, angelic like. They're, you think of the elves in The Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. Long hair that's, not long hair. Well, yeah, you could say that. Some of them have short hair, but the majority of them have long, and they're blonde, and, it's just, you think of them as being angelic, but you find out they're far from being angelic. Take them to Four Seas. The two gentlemen take him to Four Seas. Dom does not want to go to Four Seas. He believes, that going there, they're going to know who he is. But he's always worn like this regalia. It's hard to tell, it's hard to tell you from anybody else. But he has a feeling someone's going to recognize him. And, here he is. He killed people who are Four Seas. Besides, he still doesn't trust people from Four Seas. He still is programmed to hate people from Four Seas. But he's only following because a couple of the guys, and I have chapters written. I actually have 1 through 6 in the chapters in my Facebook. This isn't an advertisement to go there, but if you are interested, I do have the chapters written, at least written up to chapter 6 or 7. Keep in mind, this is still the first book, and I'm not even halfway yet. So Four Seas, they've got to go do something to get some other books. They find out it's all a lie. There's a war again because they end up finding out there's a spy inside of Four Seas where he's telling them that Dom is there. And then we go back to the fact that the war started again and stuff like that, and then there's a big war. But then they're all having visions. Even people in Vice are having visions that this cataclysm is going to happen and everything's going to be wiped out. And it's just all part of the legacy. It's all part of a reboot. So this time, though, they decided, no, we are going to build these spaceships, only to find out that the leader of Vice had spaceships ready, but hid them because he's actually Sullivan Simon. He actually has prolonged his life after so much time and has actually put himself as this I equate it to, if you've ever played the game Fallout New Vegas, there's a guy, I can't think of his name, but whatever, he's keeping himself alive inside one of the gambling casinos, and he's supposed to be alive even before the war. If you think of it like that, that's basically what it is. He's living through this persona that he's this great leader, and he still lives under the delusion that he will not go back because of the things that have happened in where he came from. And you find out they came from Earth, and they didn't want to have anything to do with the politics, religion, everything else. Everybody, the world was just going to crap, and they didn't want anything to do with it. He thought he was being noble by trying to get everybody away from this. But in turn, he's also sitting there saying, well, my rule should be my rule, and nobody should be listening to it but mine, which is not very noble. So, needless to say, the cataclysm happens. Dom and his friends get out of there. Now, here comes the part that I am not too sure where I want to go. That is the end of book 1. Okay, that's a quick synopsis, except for the beginning part of it. It's a quick synopsis. Book 2, oh, I've had like 6 books done, but in the last maybe 10 years, I have gone, okay, this can't be, I can't keep doing this. I just kept having them go on and on and on, bringing people back and having new worlds and having where they explore multiple worlds and blah, blah, blah. It was getting way too complicated. Needless to say, eventually they've got to realize one thing. In order for, because the legacy will just keep going, they can't stop it. And is what it is eventually when they go someplace and they haven't moved on to another planet or anything like that, the legacy will grab them and take them back to where they were at, and everything will start all over again. They find this out from a lady named Legna. The only way that they can stop the legacy is if they just don't exist. So it comes to the point, do they want to keep things going the way it is, living where they were at, or do they just want to sit there and say, you know what, we can't exist anymore, we gotta let things go the way they're supposed to go. So inevitably that's what ends up happening. They sit there and they say, that's it, we've got to stop it. So they devise a plan to stop it. I haven't got any of it written out or any of it really thought of too much, other than a few things, but that was from the previous time. They devise a plan, they stop it, they cease to be there anymore, and at the end of all the books and at the end of all the story, they get raised on Earth, and the cataclysm that happened, because there was a cataclysm that happened on Earth in 1988, didn't happen because the legacy was destroyed. But they get to live normal lives on Earth. They didn't know that, but they also don't know each other. So the bonds that they had with each other on in the legacy, they were forgotten. They have no idea. But I do have like a scene there towards the end where Sindel, this is the name of the one girl who basically falls in love with Dom and stuff like that, and they supposedly have kids, but that was my previous, I don't know what I'm going to do now. Basically boards a bus. She's a young, enterprising woman. She just got out of a building, it's a nice suit and everything else, and she goes on a bus and she runs into Dom, and they kind of just like share a smile as they drive away. So it's kind of like, it could be open to interpretation that it could be that they finally see each other, and stuff like that. But that's Legacy Space. I know I squeezed in the last bit of it that's like 6 stories long, but that was what I wanted to do with Legacy Space.